Okay, what was the last one? We were talking about housing, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about housing. Do you think, based on kind of how the housing market is going, people will be able to buy a house next year? Because, we're seeing this massive appreciation in the housing market from a price point standpoint, and then people figuring out how can they put the money down to get housing. You were talking about maybe some of the programs that people are using to kind of alleviate that, but where do we think this is going?
So I think the other day I was in Austin and I went to go, I think I told you this off camera. I was in this neighborhood that my friend bought houses there like for 185, less than 4 years ago. Less, like maybe 3 years and some change. And over the course of just construction and building up, most people still don't go over there like, oh, it's sketchy over there. It's nothing but working class Hispanic and Black people over there. It's not sketchy, right? But people, people love using that word conveniently. And now that same area, the houses are selling for $449,000, totally renovated, right? $390 if they're not totally renovated. And it's like egg on face of people who were like, oh, those are sketchy areas. You can't even get in the sketchy area now, can you, Susan? Right? Exactly. You can't even get over there. And so they call it Austin proper, the inside of the loop or whatever. What I was telling him is the lumber prices were crazy. Lumber's dramatically falling because guess what? People will move to other products. My mom just got a deck built on the back of her house. It's with composite. Okay. Right. We know a neighbor building a shed with cinder blocks in the South. And it's hot in the South. Yeah. And he's like, I'll build it with cinder blocks before I pay for these lumber prices. And people will move to other materials or they will delay processes. I know people right now who have fences that need to be done. They will not pay. If you know anything about pickets or if you've ever been to Home Depot or Lowe's, you could get like how many feet was that? Maybe 7 feet across. I don't know how many pickets per sec, but like a section of fence for $35. Now that same section of fence is $100. Damn. And you could literally do maybe, depending on the size of the yard, 5 of those and fix one side of a fence. Trust me, I know this because me and my friend had a fencing and painting company, and it was like a racket to charge somebody $500 for the weekend. You just bought 5 pieces and you just fixing one side of their fence. It's a good racket because what happens is husbands try to go out there and do it and can't do it. They mess up the fence, they break stuff up, they tearing it up. Wives are like, yo, let's save ourselves headache and time, pay this boy $500. Well, now if each second that fixes $100, I gotta charge you $1,000. Yeah. To fix that same fence. So people literally, it threw a monkey wrench in housing. It threw a monkey wrench in Austin, in Houston, in places where we really building. I've seen companies go, we just ain't gonna build. Like there's whole sections of phase 2 and phase 3 of housing places that aren't even being built. And so as lumber is tumbling, which I always said it's a fake shortage. I think it's gonna open up for money, the price of housing to do this.
Start walking down.
Start walking it down because I really believe if we really look at it, like I'm heading to Canada in sometime mid-July. There was lumber stacked up around Canada's border. And I feel like it was a play of Canada going blank, y'all. When we canceled the oil pipeline, all of a sudden Canada ran out of lumber to send us. And it was almost funny because Americans were driving and taking pictures and Canadians were even like, hey, there's plenty of lumber. What are you talking about? Yeah. So it's just stacked up at rail yards in Canada, just ceiling high. There's no shortage, right? Like even with trucking, when Trump was having the tariffs with China, they stopped building a lot of the trailers just for 2 months. And that 2-month supply trickled down a year and a half later. Even with COVID, when you had all these people go home and not working on these things, it put a monkey wrench in our supply system because our supply system, it was so tight with it. We order right when we need it. Yeah. We don't order in advance. We don't keep a lot of inventory. We keep it small. And that's hurt us. So this is an article we were talking about off camera about Biden trying to figure out a way. Biden. The HUD aims to boost home ownership for buyers with high student loans. If you guys watch the channel, I tell you, 89% of people that go to school don't finish. So you got all these people out here with student loan debt and no degree. Yep. But go ahead, Diamond.
Yes, I mean, so this is the reality, and I was glad that you contributed that because you understand the market, I think, on a deeper level, probably even in myself, especially that home market, is that one of the biggest things that we're worried about is that as the price of the home continues to go up, a price of something cannot go up indefinitely. So what you're going to have is a lot of resistance to the price And then the biggest issue is that, are they going to create government programs to try to make people buy homes? Now, this is going to be for people with high student loans, but what about people that maybe need help on the down payment? Because if you're trying to look for the average 20%, but the price keeps going up, that 20% gets bigger. But then you also can't make the buyer, you can't make the seller of the home accept the program. So then the question is, if I own the house as a private owner, maybe I don't want this particular program, or maybe I just want to do something different. So that's my biggest question, is that because of the monetary policy from the Federal Reserve, because of the way this particular economy is working, do we believe that if you don't get into a house now, the likelihood of you getting to a house based on where this economy is going, maybe in the next 2 to 4 years, is going to be next to impossible? Then the biggest issue is, and the biggest issue, does this now move into the rental market? Because, with the housing market starting to spike up, does it now move into the rental market where now rentals become very, very expensive? Then the question is, where do people start to live? Now, I have my own personal narrative on where I think they're going to start moving with housing. That'll be a whole nother video. But the question is, what does housing look like in the future as the cost of housing starts to go up for the average person? Because this is for people with high student loans. But then we want to ask the same question. If they get you in the home and you had to get in as a result of the program, so you really couldn't pay for it. If there's a downturn in the economy that puts stress on your ability to pay for it, now what happens to the economy? So one of my biggest challenges is that when we create these initiatives to get people in that normally couldn't afford it, they're already stressed financially. We never create the initiative to try to help them make more money. We'll get you in, and then if something happens, well, what helps everybody down the line that's dependent upon your ability to pay?
Boy, we about to go into another video. See, I want to walk you in there. USDA home loans.
Okay.
See, in this area of Austin, you can move to Pflugerville before a city gets to 50,000 people. It's considered rural, and no money down, you in the home. People's biggest complaint is, oh, that's in the country. But my biggest complaint when people say that is because you have no foresight. Yeah. I don't want to drive 30 minutes into town. Now people are forced to even go 45 minutes out of town because they didn't get in when it was USDA and no money down. So one, we move people around anyway in this country, right? Yeah. We're trying to encourage people to buy a house in rural areas. That's what we're doing with USDA loans, whether we want to talk about it or not. But are we late to the game? Right? Okay. Because a lot of my friends, young Black people, bought a house out in the, what we consider the country. People love talking about that. A year later, they were able to move further into the city by renting that house out and going about their day. Okay. But you can only do that play when you own something. Yeah. When you don't own nothing, now you in this hopscotch game of keep moving. I meet people all the time like, well, I just got to leave Austin. Why? Oh, I can't buy a house inside Austin. Boo-boo, you lived here 6, 7, 8 years. You knew the prices were changing. And so to me, a lot of these programs, let's keep it a buck. The most successful program that the Section 8 has is getting people into these programs where they get them a down payment for their house and they forgive the down payment loan. Those people pretty much never return to the welfare system. Okay. But it's getting them to believe they can get into the home, getting them to see that this is a value to do this. And all they have to do is make 12 on-time payments in a year and they'll forgive the house loan. Okay. Right. So where do we have the accountability to teach people? Just pay your damn bills on time, right? Right. There's one, but two, also, the government will never give you the tools to defeat it.
Damn, she dropped out.
Oh, we lost him. I'm gonna wait a second. I'm gonna see if y'all in here. I know it's getting on an hour mark, but I'm gonna let him come back in before I finish that statement. Okay, you back. I held off. I told him, wait a second.
Yeah, appreciate it.
There's some good comments and stuff. But I was saying,
what I last heard was you last said the government.
I said the government's never going to give you the tools to defeat it. They're never going to be like, hey, let me help you make more money. Let me teach you how to invest your money. That's really becomes onto the person. Okay. Right? That becomes, that's where we get back into this. Well, we helped you get the house. You in there now. And even for me, when I'm from North Carolina, where I would see people who I went to high school with, oh, I don't want to buy over there. But you willing to pay for 10 years? I know them now. They still don't own no house. You willing to pay $1,200 a month when you could own this house and your mortgage would be $350? You don't make enough money to make that decision, right? It's almost like there's a book called Nudge, and people get mad at the book because they're like, oh, the government's interfering with our lives. But it's sad that the government has to encourage you to walk and drink water and eat vegetables to take care of your feet so they don't fall off from diabetes. But that's just where we are. So y'all want the government to put you in a good house and teach you how to make money? That's a lot. You asking a lot from a government.
Okay, so this is the question we want to ask. Because see, what we saw in the last, like that 07, 08 crisis was that we had there was a program, and it didn't come from the government. It really came from Wall Street because they wanted to sell more houses. They wanted to sell more houses because they could securitize the mortgage, right?
For sure.
So what they did was they went and lobbied to these politicians, create a program to where we can sell more houses. And what they did now was they essentially lowered the qualification to get into a house. Because when I was coming up, you wanted to get a home loan, like they would go to your pastor, they would go to your job. Like the underwriter would really almost do like a FBI level investigation, trying to figure out who you were before you could get the house, because they were so worried that you weren't going to pay them their money back. Then what they did was they lowered those standards, but the problem is they got everybody in on very low standards, and it kind of a lot of people got on adjustable rate mortgages, things of that nature, but they got them in. Then they talked about, okay, so we got all these programs to get you in, the American dream of being a homeowner, yada, yada, yada. Okay, we get it. Then when the economy went down, which is going to do eventually anyway, all those people could not pay for their homes, which means that those particular securitized assets no longer had that same kind of value because a person couldn't keep paying on it. So then what it meant is that whole market got tanked. So the institutions dumped those assets to people that didn't know any better, and they just walked away. That's what I'm worried about, is that we create the program, but the program really doesn't solve the problem. So it allows people to get into the home, but your biggest issue is lack of income, stability. So how does this solve? Whose problem does this solve? Because we understand the original plan, it just solved the problem of Wall Street, but it really didn't solve the problem of the person. Because once they lost their job, they lost that home anyway, once that arm jumped up. So that's what I would ask, is that it could be like, a lot of times we'll come up with a short-term solution, but then how do we solve the problem long-term? So like you said, with the USDA loan, okay, we'll give the forgiveness as long as you make sure you hit all the particular terms of your payment. So that's a good deal. But to say that, if you got a high student loan, we'll create a program to get you in. But the question is, unless we just gonna wipe the slate clean on you, if you still are on the hook to pay it, what happens if you can't pay it? And then what happens to that market for these particular homes if everybody starts to default? Because it can become like a domino effect.
Right. I see what you're saying. So I take it from the perspective of the book Shift. There's a book called Shift with Gary Keller, and then there's also one about demographic shift. And we're moving to a country where, boarding houses never went away, right? 1950s, 1940s, you had boarding houses where single young women, single men, my friends here, and I'm going to just say what they are. They're white people who bought houses, 3 dudes for $176. 4 years later, that same house, or 3 years later, really, but 4 years, that same house they sold it for $380,000. They rented out the rooms. As men got married and went off, one of the original owners was still there. He wasn't married yet. Well, now he got engaged this year. He's like, all right, we're selling this house.
Yeah.
People with these houses, if money's funny, they're going to move people in.
Yeah.
That's the nature of like, oh, okay, money funny. A lot of times you see these people who have kids returning back home. Y'all not talking about the mama and daddy who's 50, 60 years old, have a stroke or a heart attack, can't really work full time anymore. They move in, right? Yeah. So there's, I think the numbers are, if you look at the stat, it's like 50% of all American children live in a home with somebody getting something, whether it's Social Security, grandma, food stamps, something. And so people are like, oh my God, are we worried about the country becoming a welfare nation? I said, no. If grandma lived there and grandma getting Social Security, that doesn't change the fact that that family still functions, right?
Yeah.
It's a mindset thing. A lot of these people saw what happened in 2008, and I've got friends who claim their family never recovered, right? But now they get in a house and they ain't leaving that house. You're going to have to drag me out in the street, kind of thing. Like if nothing else, I'm going to stay in this house, right? And so they do call them the ninja loan if you're breathing. Is he breathing? Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
And I'm going to break this off and make this a whole video. Like, I'm going to get Peter to cut it up. But my biggest thing is, if you can't tell from the last 5 years how important a home is, you ain't been paying attention.
Yeah.
You ain't been paying attention. Like, Grant Cardone's always talking about, oh, bump a home. You need to be able to be movable and flexible, because you see people moving from California to Texas, New York to Texas. There are two different types of people moving. When somebody sells their home, they family own, or they own from California, they can come to Texas and buy 2 homes, 3 homes.
Yeah.
They can come to Texas and buy a rental property, and all of a sudden now they big baller in Texas. I've met several black men who sold the home in Ohio, not even a big state, Ohio, bought a cheap home out in the edges of Dallas because they're not even from there, so they don't care.
Yeah.
Then bought a second home, renting that one out, doing Airbnb, and his family like, you the king bee out here in Dallas, you know, not realizing all he did was take something that was $300,000 in Ohio, sell it, and buy 2 $150,000 homes on the nowhere town edges of Dallas. But that changed his whole life, his whole projected is owning something. Now the flip side is people coming from New York, Philly. I'm gonna just say it. The problems Atlanta are having is people who are leaving with nothing, and they bringing their bad kids with them. They leave in New York because they got to leave New York. They leave in Philly because they got to leave Philly. They leave in Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. I'll put you out there because they have to. They come to Atlanta, but the behavior has been brought with them. Yeah. Like they don't have no money to really come to Atlanta and projectingly change their children's life. Yeah. They just have a new city they in. I'm a military kid. I've seen it where somebody's is from they were at a duty station with me, and their parents moved them to California or, you know, Alabama or Hawaii. And you meet those kids later, depending on where they got stationed, that's a whole different kid. The housing argument, no matter who, if Gary Vee or Grant Cardone's people tell you don't need to buy a house, if you're black in this country or Hispanic, you want to buy a home. Hands down, you want to buy a home. If you're a single woman and you're waiting till you get married to buy a home, what you're going to realize, sis, is you're going to end up living with other women. That's what I'm seeing here. There's a lot of older women having to share a house, or you're going to move in with your mama, and it's the same thing. So again, if you don't own anything in this country, and that's really how you're seen, right? People that could really vote in the past were people who owned a house, owned land. Landowners were the voters. You're just a consumer. You just spending money. You know, I love when I hear the stories of people mad at an apartment owner. He did this, and I'd be like, and what? You don't own the building. You just pay rent there. So my biggest concern in this whole thing is when people say, well, my student loans are preventing me from buying a house. That's really not what's buying your house. Low income's preventing you from buying a house.
Exactly.
The government ain't going to go out of its way to make sure you make income. I mean, it just ain't. Same thing with Atlanta right now. Atlanta could come up with a program to train a bunch of kids on tech, because we talked about this. India right now is on a extreme lockdown. United States for a year, you know, Kamala and Biden were like, oh, we're going to get 500,000 Indian folk up in here. No, you're not. Between this virus, there's a year where if you're a black man or a Hispanic person or whoever, or a white person in this country, and you thought about getting into tech as a job, now's your time to shine. Yeah. Because they're going to hold it off for about 1 year till that virus calms down over there. They can't even get no people over here. We've got friends whose parents are from India. They can't go home right now. Like if they can't fly back. So I'm just trying to put it out there. Like the income problem is on you to figure it out. But it's easier to figure out an income problem when you own the house and your mortgage is $1,200 and you just rent a room to your friend for $600. And now you only got to worry about a $600 problem. But when you have the whole apartment bill to yourself, and the apartment don't have to be patient with you, especially now that they're putting the evictions back. Yeah. It's a different conversation.
Yeah. Okay. And I agree with you, but let me, and this is what I've seen, because I'm from a city that's really was based on a lot of tourism. So I'm from a city that's tourist based. So a lot of the jobs are what we call service oriented jobs. We don't have a lot of hard industry here. We don't have any tech really. We don't have a lot of skilled labor not being big here. It's pretty much you just serve the tourism, right? Right. So we're a tourist city, but it's not on the beach, but it's still a tourist city. So this is how they play it. So we understand that the people in government, they function really to serve the big business. That's really why they're there. So whatever big business is big in your area, that's normally who government is going to serve, whatever goals they have. So I'm from an area where the big business in our area is the theme parks, the attractions. Those places don't pay a lot of money. but they need workers. So what they would do is they would create a lot of what we call low income housing, allow you to get the home. And there's whole sections of my city where you got low income housing. It's not in the part of the city where people really want to live in, but they'll give you like a real nice house, no down payment, and then you pay like $150 a month to stay in the house. And they just build these big tracts of these low income houses. The problem is you already don't make a lot of money working in these particular theme parks, working in the service sector, unless you work as server and you make a lot of money with tips. Working these restaurants, you don't make a lot of money. They give you housing that's very, very inexpensive, but it's not like you living in the projects. You got your own home. You got your dream of home ownership. That starts to become your lifestyle. So now you're not making a lot of money, but also you don't have a lot of expenses, and then you build your life around that. So you don't look to get married before you have children because you don't need a husband because you don't need a lot of money. You as a man, you don't look to become a father because you don't have to take care of a family. Why? Because the women that you're dealing with, they don't need your money because they don't have high expenses. They don't have an expectation that you need to come to the table. So but that works for the economy. The economy needs low income, unskilled, uneducated people to work in their business. So then it starts to become this perpetual cycle of this. And so my problem is that a lot of times what these people is claiming is coming to help you. If you don't have the mentality that it's a Band-Aid, it's not meant to fix my situation. It's meant to be a stopgap till I can get to my next situation. If you get caught in that lifestyle, and it happens because if I make $30,000 a year, pretty much everybody I know makes $30,000.
Yes.
If I make $100,000, so then you get caught in the lifestyle of I make $35,000 a year, and the government, because of these programs, pays all my bills. This becomes my social circle of everybody else. I build my life around this, and then you show them children the same thing, and that's how they keep it going. And I've seen this in my city because I'm from here. I've seen it go on forever, and you get caught in it. And a lot of these young kids, because they realize that money working in these theme parks is not money, they start going in the street to get money. Now they really get caught up. And then now your parents, they can't afford to get you out of trouble with the law because they don't have it. And now we create these cycles. So that's what I see, and that's what I'm worried about because I've seen this going on. And a lot of that is what we saw happen in Atlanta. They never determined that they were going to create what I would call upward mobility programs. It was just, we need you to work these jobs. Let's keep you where you at. A lot of the jobs at the airport, things of that nature. And then now what they're doing is they're flushing all those people out because they don't need them anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I see what you're saying. I can get with you on that because there was a hotel for sale, but it was one of those weekly stays. Okay. And if you look at the weekly stay price, about $359 a week times 4 weeks is like $1,500. Exactly. And when you talk to people like, why are you in an apartment yet? Because they don't make enough money to save for the down payment to go on. And so they get into this comfort zone of there's internet here. I don't have no light bill. And those people stay there. That's why when people say, why is Austin building all these hotels? We got people living in all the hotels. Yep. like they full. And that becomes a lifestyle because it's cheap enough for them to pay for the week. Even with Torino, somebody made a comment, and I'm gonna go to it, but I like how we went into that. I get what you're saying now. I follow you. What ends up happening there is it's still the onus of that person to some point go, okay, this ain't working. Yep. And usually, unfortunately, what happens is they get pregnant, and that's when they're like, oh, I got to have more money than this. This ain't no job. I gotta go study and educate myself, and that's why. And I'll be careful. I'm treading light here as much as I can. Me and my friends who have courses, especially Black people, they don't really do this to white people. I'm a single mom. Help me out, sis. Help the community out. And really, all this whole past year with these STEMI checks and last year, you've had the tools and the money to do something different. But did you have this up here ready?
Exactly.
Right. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm tired of selling my time. By the time they figure out they don't want to sell their time number, they're 35 and they really haven't done anything.
Yep. That's
why my friend, she's like recruiter. She's like, you see a lot of Black people starting these entry-level jobs that are great career paths, but like late 30s. Yep. Like they get it, but it's late 30s. So again, this is good. It's good. I'm sorry I'm taking up all your Saturday, but I just want to, because I feel like what people don't talk about is the starting late. There's nothing wrong with starting late. You have to start late, you start late. But when your friends are 25 to 27 and they get married and they go buy a cheap house, well, by the time they're 30, 31, they can go buy another house.
Yeah.
They can leave that house. And because of the stability of one, marriage, and two, it's a cheap house that he can change careers. Well, then 35, they're doing a whole new level of things. They're taking kids on vacations. They're going on vacations every year. And you're 35 and you're just starting into the entry level of like, oh, I need to get a serious job. You already starting behind. That's why there's such this, and be careful as I push here. That's why there's such a push on YouTube for people to be like, if you're a man, don't worry. You can be 40 to 55 years old and have a baby for the first time and get married.
No, you don't do that.
You got all that time. And I'm like, everybody I know who had an old daddy is like, that won't it. That won't the business. You know what I mean? And a lot of my friends lost their father, distinguished military men, but they end up having a heart attack as soon as they got out of the military because they were an old soldier trying to, with these young kids, like old, like, and people are like, oh, you're being mean about age. But I really want you to understand, like, you wait to 40 to 50 to have children. I know it's a big kind of soul thing in our community. It's a problem. It's a problem. Uh-oh, we lost Dave. Let me see if he comes back in. But I mean, they are doing that. They are doing that. Yes, they are. Right. So there's no manufacturing. Dave, we're gonna get you fixed with that Florida internet. We're gonna get you right.
I don't want to say the name of the. I don't want to say the name of the company.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Just buy some shares of it. Iman Perry said, if you're on the grind, you can do it by 35. I feel you. I'm just. We're going there in that conversation. I'm gonna break this video up a couple of segments because I know people like 10-minute segments. But you're right. He said Anaheim, ATL, New Orleans, any city that has tourism as its service base and no tech or
exactly.
Yeah.
And so one thing, and I try to get, and this is my own perspective of economics, is that I think a lot of your perspective of what you should be doing as an adult a lot of times comes from the type of city that you're raised in.
Yes.
So if you're raised in a city where everything is service-based, is tourist-based, that's what the city businesses need. They need somebody to fill demand in these positions. So they're not bringing in tech training. They're not bringing in skilled training because we just need more service workers. And then that becomes the community. And so then it'll be different if I was raised in a city like Seattle, or if I was raised in a city like New York City. But a lot of times when you're raised in a tourist-based environment, everybody they need thousands of people just to fill these tourist-based positions. So the school system is really designed to produce these kind of people. And so that's what we got to really look at. That's why I tell, if you're going to be a parent, where you raise your child is very important to how your child is going to develop, because that environment is going to create they're going to kind of shape your child based on what that environment demands. And so that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that people are raised in certain environments and they're not even aware of the fact that they can do something else because where they're from, everybody does it, or they're raised in places, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but you got a lot of the Midwestern cities where the economy has imploded because the manufacturing has pulled out. And so everybody's essentially on a treadmill. You work these small jobs that are unskilled. You don't make a lot of money. Every weekend you party, you drink. People go in and out of prison. People have children. And this just becomes your lifestyle. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I started to change my life when I really changed my lifestyle and what I was involved in on the day-to-day level, because you can't do things and think that your life is going to change. You got to literally change what you're involved in and start changing your associations, because one of the biggest challenges that you're going to have is the amount of money you make a lot of times is proportionate to the kind of people that you're around. If everybody you know who make $35,000, $40,000 a year, it's going to be hard for you to get to the 100K mark, because you don't know anybody that makes that kind of money anyway. So you got to start changing. A lot of what these programs, in my opinion, do is they lock you into an economic category, because that's what business needs. And they just try to figure out how to get you to serve that economic category, but it doesn't really benefit you long term.
For sure, for sure. And again, y'all, thank y'all for hanging. Y'all been hanging tough with this. We've been going on this chat and they like it. But we're going to have to chop this video up a couple bits. Stephen James said, a lot of people come to Atlanta trying to be creative or celebrity-based lifestyle influencer. It's a hustle like social media manager was or rapper was back in the day. Whoop! He's shooting shots here. I mean, that's the same with Austin. People come here and they get real mad. They get real mad because they realize, oh, wait, like, to live downtown, I'm going to need $4,000 or $3,000.
Yeah.
But who living down there? Tech people. So
exactly.
You have a lot of creative people come here and get real mad. I'm like, that was 20 years ago. You could be an artist and just live in Austin. I tell people, go ahead.
Tell Geechee Dan, I know social media influencers, and there's no disrespect to these chicks because I'm not trying to down talk them, but I know social media influencers from Atlanta that live in the city, and they living on people's couches. They not living this big time lifestyle. That's why I don't buy into it, because I know better. So they living on people's couches, but they get their hair done, they get their nails done, they set up for the pictures. So I know Atlanta's a very expensive city. It's a lot going on, but it's not what people think it is. And I know that, but I don't put people's name out there because it's not about that. But I know the real. Because Atlanta, people don't know. So there's something in Atlanta that we call Spaghetti Junction.
Yeah.
Atlanta is probably in the Southeast, probably the #1 place for child sex trafficking because of the convention center. That's one thing. Atlanta 2 is very much gang related. Atlanta 3 has a large amount of drug crime because of the amount of transport that comes into Atlanta. So it's a lot going on in the underground of that city that the average person's not aware of. And if you go to that city and you can't make it economically, you get pushed into that underground. Yes. And a lot of people aren't really ready for it. They just think they are because they just see the glamour and the internet side and the social media side. But when you can't pay your bills and you can't support yourself in that city, like a lot of really big cities, you get pushed into the underground economy. And a lot of people find out real fast that they're not built for it. So that's something that I warn people about, is when you go to these large cities, the Atlantas, the New Yorks, the Los Angeles, if you don't have the ability to support yourself, it's very unfortunate that a lot of people are going to come out to prey on you because they know this is a great market of people that come here, they don't make it, and now I can take advantage of the person.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's getting there.
Okay.
Because I saw a bunch of $1 million condos. I'm like, who is for this for? This isn't for the local people in Nashville.
Yeah.
I always tell people classism more than racism. And people get mad at me for that because it's and or both sometimes. When you don't make over $25,000 a year, you are unfortunately in a lower class, and our society lies to you. Like, even when somebody says, "Oh, to be a middle class man," I don't even like that term anymore, because middle class starts at $35,000 to $150,000. Exactly. That's too big of a gap. Yeah. Old boy making $40K telling me he makes $40K a year, baby. Like, you on the edge of poverty. If you have 4 people in your family, 40,000 is the edge of poverty.
Yeah.
So but Atlanta is selling you the hope of Black Hollywood, right? You can come down here and you can make it. And I'm trying to be careful. I mean, like, the thing about what frustrates me is when I see people who are like, and this is true what you said, people can't get pushed into the underground. Usually it's at a young age, because if you're 20 to 30, your ass know you can go do something else. You 25 to 35, you see there's jobs. You know you can go do something else. But I will say social media influencers, why you see so many women doing it, and really what you notice, if you pay attention, everybody don't pay attention like I do, but if you notice about that 31 to 34 mark, if they don't get married and then switch it on the Christian side and switch it to the influencer home mommy side and switch it to look how great my husband is, old girls get real, they go to business stuff. Like, there's several influencers I watch now who, like, she don't say it, but she's straight on the business side now. Like, she's all about, like, how do you make this money from these photos? Like, cause sexy, everybody ain't Holly Berry till they 50. Somebody borrow them 30. And I made a video on this. I recorded it. I'm waiting on Peter to edit it. You have to figure out a way to take you out of the equation. And what ends up happening is these people get on this influencer track and they can't let people see them struggle. That's why I'm so transparent on this channel. And I'm like, hey, this sucks. I'm doing something else, or I'm pivoting, and you have to be able to be confident enough in your skill base to go, I don't care what you say about me. I'm going to go do this now. Because you don't have to get stuck on this treadmill of trying to be an influencer. So,
but this is something I want to say, is that what you're seeing, and it's this economy that we've been built, especially because of social media. And you were right that if a person young goes there, they a lot of times get pushed, and a lot of times because they don't know any better. Mm-hmm. But the biggest problem is that if you become an older person, but especially an older woman, and you don't have skill sets, you don't have skills that you can, and you're also don't have the desire to develop them. Because I was talking to a woman I know that does tech up in Cleveland, and she talked about how she thinks that a woman that doesn't want to develop certain skills, that would just rather do certain things as a form, it's really because she may be lazy. And so she doesn't want to put the actual work in. Because I know a chick through social media. She lives in this, I'm not going to say a city, but she lives in the Southeast. She lives in a fairly moderate city. She got 2 children. She's never been married. She is supplementing her income, and she's an older woman, so she's over 30, through doing OnlyFans, selling private videos to men. And the question is, well, unless you have the intelligence to take that money and maybe invest it by real estate, how long do you think you can run this track? And so what I think we're going to see, and I talked about this on social media, is that if you go to other parts of the world, because the economy has imploded and the government has not really done a lot of things to really elevate their people, a lot of the women are in the sex industry in one form or another. And I think you're slowly seeing that creep into the American economy, where I'm not against it. You can do what you want to do. But when you have a platform like OnlyFans that is so big, and primarily what it's based on is a lot of women selling some type of pornography or soft pornography, and it's becoming so accepted, a lot of women will rather do that maybe than develop the skill sets to actually be successful. The problem is that, what is your long-term track for that?
It runs out, baby.
Exactly. I know a lot of dancers that danced, but the problem is dancing should be a 3 to 4 year hustle. If you're dancing past 3 to 4 years, it's because you don't have a plan after dancing.
Man.
And so that's the issue, is that a lot, this society is so based on not really developing people and not trying to get people to understand how they got to consistently develop themselves. And there's also alternatives for you not to develop yourself to make your money just off how you look, or people think you're being attractive. They fall into that, but it's a short-term run. If you go learn tech, you can be whatever age and still monetize your tech ability, your tech knowledge. You can work as a consultant, things of that nature. When you get paid off how you look, that's really a short-term. It's like being a professional athlete. And it's not a good look for you to be a woman that's over a certain age and you still trying to sell how you look from a pornographic standpoint, even though you may be able to monetize it on some level because of how a lot of men are. My question is, how is that sustainable for you long term? And then what are you doing to develop yourself past that, to where when this doesn't work anymore? Because what happens to a lot of women in these spaces is they have to continue to, I don't know how you would use the term properly, but they got to go to more extremes to make money.
Yeah.
So the question is, if you start here, in 5 years, where are you going to be in this particular industry? Because you got to keep going to an extreme to make money.
They're going to move.
Okay, I feel you.
I mean, I've been studying this for a while, and I've told y'all on this channel very transparently, I had 4 young ladies, and they were not Black. They were actually white, and two were half Asian, who are in the industry you're talking about, where they were doing cam girl stuff. And they just realized, I'm in Austin, one was in Houston, I ain't got to do this no more. I'm getting a little bit up in age. I just don't want to do this no more. And we just literally helped them take their money. And one girl, just when she started putting her apartment on Airbnb, that was a wrap. She's all business now. And she even dating a young man who is in real estate. I don't think he realized old girl used to be a cam girl. Like, I still follow her on Instagram, and I'm like, I don't think he have a clue, because she let that life go. Like, I'm just a pretty girl who put my apartment on Airbnb, and I finally made some money, so I got 3 apartments, and that's how she's moving in Houston. Okay. And so my thing is, I agree with you. A lot of these people they don't retire from choice. They retire because they're forced out.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a woman I see right now. She's 48. Good looking for 48. Good looking. Like, you would think she's 35. Now, she thinks she's 25. I don't know how she sees that, but that's delusion. She's still selling that body angle. And I'm like, boo, you right at the door of 50. You got to wrap that up. And so I've even noticed her moving to different ways. Okay. And that's the thing I want to tell these women, is like, you wait too late. There's some Black women. Black don't crack unless you get fat, right? Black, you can extend those years. But what I've seen people do is they move. I've seen people who have a whole different life. One of the ladies that paid me very well to help her get her stuff set up, she had a whole different life in Dallas. She moved to another part of Texas. Nobody know. She done got married and everything. Nobody know, right? And so if they're smart, they'll move and start anew. If they're smart. If they wait till they get pushed out the game, or they end up having kids, unfortunately, it's like dragging them out. of that industry, basically. They can't. I remember seeing this documentary on this woman that was like 50. She was still stripping.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? But she was always in towns where it was more men than women. She was either in an oil town, and if you ever notice the people that when it comes to stripping or sex work, however you want to say it, mostly stripping, they move a lot. Okay, right? They're not they don't have a home base. They go to where the towns kind of where they can go. And the woman in the documentary was like, she was in when the oil was booming out there in what do you call it, North Dakota, South Dakota.